be so self-righteous. They've got a lot of spies in our country, too, which they have. And if we're lucky, they may steal some of our secrets, and then they'll be 2 years behind.
And of course, the country is founded on the double standard. That's our history. We were founded on a very basic double standard. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free.
But we live in the greatest country in the world. A country where we have freedom of religion and separation of church and state, only we don't at all, and nobody says anything because we're used to it.
You know, we have such dumb, stupid laws in this country. By law, we would never be permitted to draft a murderer into the army and send him out to kill. You have to be nonviolent, then we'll teach you how to kill.
What do you think that these executives are afraid you're going to do to white America?
Probably stop some racism.
Stop racism?
Yeah.
And that's what you won't hear on mainstream TV ever, is honest emotions.
I love America, and what I would say to my right-wing friends is that I don't hate America. I'm embarrassed, okay? I'm embarrassed.
In this era, stand-up comedy has more exposure than at any point in history. Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, YouTube, TikTok. The list goes on and on. And so does the list of comedians. Because the marketplace has become oversaturated and overexposed. And, as with any other industry, when you flood the market, the product suffers. That ultimately leads to an unsatisfied and overwhelmed consumer.
You miserable, no good consumer at all.
But comedy isn't a product like any other. At its worst, it's a quick fix for a low attention span audience. But at its best, comedy has power. The raw, unfiltered power to express an idea. Maybe an idea that has never been heard before. Maybe an idea that could change opinions. In this video, we pay tribute to those men and women who, armed with little more than a microphone, served as our torchbearers, our heroes, and gave voice to the collective experience we call life. Stand-up as we know it emerged from mid-20th century vaudeville when entertainers, donned in elaborate costumes, sets, and props, slowly evolved into simply a man and a microphone standing in front of a curtain, telling one-liners about their mother-in-law and doing impressions.
Hey, the gentleman in the first row, do you mind moving? Your head is shining in my eyes. Is that your wife, sir? Oh, really? Well, what are you gonna do?
But by the early 60s, a new breed of comedians stepped onto the stage. They weren't looking to sneak their way into show business so they could find a nice easy gig hosting a talk show or star in a family-friendly sitcom. They actually had something to say.
I hate to see any baseball player having trouble, but that's a great sport for my people. That is the only sport in the world where a Negro can shake a stick at a white man and won't start no riot.
Gone were the throwaway gags, cheap impressions, and stories about their wife's cooking. New wave comedians were emerging, and for the first time introduced sex, politics, and race relations into the comedy discourse.
But it turns out in New York State they have a very funny law that says you can't get a divorce unless you can prove adultery. And that's very strange because the Ten Commandments say, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." But New York State says you have to.
And nothing would ever be the same. The social upheaval of the 1960s cannot be understated.
Show me that you want to assume the responsibilities of citizenship. Show me that you are as good as the white man and can live in his area. Then we'll be more likely to consider it.
The Vietnam War, civil rights, assassination after assassination after assassination. Not that you'd hear about this in any comedy club. That is, until Mort Sahl. Just as there was revolution in society, Mort led the revolution in socially conscious comedy.
Take an issue like the Vietnamese conflict, and I'll show you how it works. Starting on the left here. The left-wing position is the Americans must get out. I don't care about any unilateral. They must get out. That's that position. That would be here. Middle of the road communist position is they don't have to get out, but they should stop bombing the North. That's their position. The right-wing, left-wing position is they should stop bombing and they should start getting out, And we should open up the area to trade because their money's as good as anyone else's. This position is, I don't like them either, but I mean, my goodness, you know. This position is, I don't know, we got so many men in Vietnam. What if the communists just strike somewhere else? I mean, I hope McNamara knows what he's doing, that's all. Now, the right-wing Social Democrats, which is where most everybody in America is, say, the war's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. That's their thing. Now, when you move into the right wing here, the left wing of the right wing says the war's a dirty job, and fortunately, we got to do it. It's a little different, a little jump here. Middle of the road here of the right wing says, why don't we escalate? Bombing the North, let's bomb Peking. And this group, of course, says, let's bomb them on Sunday.
Treating the audience as intellectual equals was a radical new concept, and other comedians soon took notice. Lenny Bruce. The man has an almost mythical legacy in the world of comedy. Why? Because he wasn't just about the jokes. He challenged people, challenged the audience, challenged politicians, and challenged the status quo.
I don't knock anybody who's not an out-and-out integration. It's just the way I look at it very simply. It's just from a moral aspect. If you're not an out-and-out integrationist, not you're an atheist, because Christ and Moses were teachers. And if you keep anybody out of school for 5 minutes, you're against every Christ-like concept, so that you're an atheist.
He also openly criticized the moral hypocrisy of organized religion. And above all else, was a committed defender of the First Amendment.
Here's how I feel about it. If I start to really analyze my humor, I guess every bit of it stems from some societal problem or people's concept that I think is hypocrisy.
Such was his level of commitment, he would perform his act under constant threat of being arrested, with the police often shutting down his act, resulting in him being blacklisted around the country. He was eventually convicted for so-called word crimes, which sounds less like a 20th century democracy and more like present-day North Korea. So why did he do it? Because he used comedy to stand up for what he believed in. He believed comedians didn't just have to play the court jester. They could be agents of change. Mort Sahl and Lenny Bruce both brought meaningfulness into their act. Their jokes weren't disposable one-liners you could find on the back of a cereal box. They wrote material that was worthy of debate. This was humor infused with critical thinking, and their work sent waves across the industry. It felt dangerous, but also exciting. The revolution had begun, and the next decade saw the rise of not one, but two rock stars of comedy. The 1970s saw the United States suffer a decade-long hangover after the drug-fueled peace and love era of the 60s. The Vietnam War was still raging, the economy was sliding, not to mention the Watergate scandal.
It's heavy, man. It's really heavy. They even talk about it in the ghetto now. You know it's heavy when they talk about it in the ghetto. That's right. Cat walked with me the other day. I was in the ghetto. He says, hey, man, you hear about Watergate? That's all he said, because that's all he knew.
The rose-tinted view of American idealism was being attacked from both without and within. And George Carlin was more than happy to lead that charge.
Ali and Frazier, Muhammad Ali, I call him Muhammad Ali because that's what he wants. Oh yeah, he's a big dude and he hits hard, you know. We'll call him what he wants, but it's good that he's being allowed to work again. As you know, he couldn't work for 3 years. Of course, he had a strange job beating people up. But that was his, you know, his right. He could have that job. Government wanted him to change jobs. Government wanted him to kill people. He thought it over and he said, no, that's where I draw the line. I'll beat him up, but I don't want to kill him. And the government told him, well, if you won't kill him, we won't let you beat him up.
Taking the baton from the late Lenny Bruce, Carlin fought censorship through his infamous 7 dirty words routine, questioning the very nature of language and the context in which we apply it. In this example, he expertly dissects the propaganda of the American military-industrial complex to expose its hypocrisy.
There's a condition in combat, most people know about it. It's when a fighting person's nervous system has been stressed to its absolute peak and maximum, can't take any more input. The nervous system has either snapped or is about to snap. In the First World War, that condition was called shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language, 2 syllables, shell shock. Almost sounds like the guns themselves. That was 70 years ago. Then a whole generation went by, and the Second World War came along, and the very same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now. Takes a little longer to say. Doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. Then we had the war in Korea, 1950. Madison Avenue was riding high by that time, and the very same combat condition was called operational exhaustion. Hey, we're up to 8 syllables now. And the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It's totally sterile now. Operational exhaustion. Sounds like something that might happen to your car. Then, of course, came the war in Vietnam, which has only been over for about 16 or 17 years. And thanks to the lies and deceit surrounding that war, I guess it's no surprise that the very same condition was called post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we've added a hyphen. And the pain is completely buried under jargon. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll bet you if we'd have still been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention they needed at the time. I'll bet
you. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Richard Pryor evolved into arguably the greatest comedian of them all.
I asked Lucy, why did you kill everybody in the house? Because they was home.
Almost a one-man theater act, he captivated audiences with raw, unfiltered tales from the ghetto and cutting observations on race, class, and American culture. He raised the bar in comedic storytelling, and we saw how it's possible for a comedian to bare his soul on stage and still be funny.
Man, just check the logic. Check the logic. I went downtown, right? Now this is me, right? I'm gonna try to get the job. The mother tell me I can't have the job, but I can take an application.
After all, if a painter or a poet can express their pain through their art, then why can't a comedian? By the 1980s, the comedy spectrum had expanded. Stand-up was crossing paths with sketch comedy, bringing satire to a wider audience. Shows like SNL in the US and Not the 9 O'Clock News in the UK lampooned authority figures and held a mirror up to society through the power of a punchline.
In short, Savage, in the space of 1 month, you have brought 117 ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges.
Yes, sir.
Against the same man.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Winston Kodogo of 55 Mercer Road.
Yes, sir.
Sit down, Savage.
Yes, sir.
Savage, why do you keep arresting this man?
He's a villain, sir.
A villain?
And a jailbird, sir.
I know he's a jailbird, Savage. He's down in the cells now. We're holding him on a charge of possession of curly black hair and thick lips.
Comedians started using their act to highlight issues that were either unfairly portrayed by the media or being left out altogether. Take an issue like the drug crisis, which the government only ever saw from one angle.
Just say no.
But through the power of performance, we the audience can learn that it's not a simple black and white issue.
I think she's living in an unreal world. Explain to me how you tell an urban teenager who lives in the street, in the school systems of the real world, just say no. Explain it to me. How do you justify that to a mother who's maybe got 6 kids and $365 a month from welfare, and one of her kids is bringing 15 grand a week? Oh, just say no.
drugs. I'll be honest with you, it's what I can't stand is all day long we see those commercials. Here's your brain on drugs, just so you know. Why do you think they call it dope? And then the next commercial is this bud's for you. Come on, everybody, let's be hypocritical bastards. It's okay to drink your drug. We meant those other drugs, those untaxed drugs. Those are the ones that are bad for you.
Bill Hicks was often compared to Lenny Bruce because he also valued his freedom of speech over wealth and fame, even if it came at a cost.
I think that you've become one of a few really good visionary comics. I think like you and Dennis Miller and Will Durst are probably on that cutting edge, that Mort Sahl, Lenny Bruce type thing.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a handful of others who you haven't heard of because they're even more on the edge and you're never going to hear them.
Why not? I mean,
because there's no venue. Comedy clubs won't book them, and America does not take comedy seriously, social criticism seriously. If you look at even the careers of Mort Sahl and Lenny Bruce, you'll notice that one was basically run out of the business, and the other one was killed himself due to lack of work. This is how America supports social criticism.
For Bill, it was never about how much money you make. It's about leaving a legacy. The modern political landscape is more divided than ever, with news media outlets doing their best to fuel this divide for the sake of profits.
Would you, as president, meet with the leaders of a country like North Korea? Obama extraordinarily said, I'd meet with them.
Senator Obama made his intentions crystal clear on the campaign trail.
I will meet, not just with our friends, but with our enemies.
President Obama likes talking to dictators.
He would meet with some of these madmen without any preconditions.
You know, I'm going to reach out to these crazy people around the world and try to get things done.
Yeah.
A remarkable turnaround in relations between two historic adversaries.
The Commander-in-Chief's leadership is now leading to a major foreign policy breakthrough.
Another stunning Donald Trump breakthrough.
But comedians like Bill Maher, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and John Oliver are fighting back with news media of their own.
As always, we leave it to Fox to truly stretch the limits of who may lend some expertise.
You may know John Edward as the psychic medium from the television show Crossing Over.
By blurring the lines between stand-up and cable news, they mercilessly savage politicians and pundits, probing the absurdity of televised political discourse, whilst informing and educating their audience.
Super PACs are transparent.
Right.
And the C4 is secret. So I can take secret donations of my C4 and give it to my supposedly transparent super PAC.
And it'll say given by your C4.
What is the difference between that and money laundering?
They have elevated the standard of what it means to be a modern-day satirist. And they are able to do what Mort and Lenny and George and Richard and Bill were all trying to do. Speak the truth, express an idea, and change opinions. All whilst making you laugh. That, my friends, is the power of comedy.